Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have something really special for you. I got a super awesome guest for you today. He's a world-renowned aquarist. He's a world-renowned diver and underwater photographer and videographer, and has contributed to numerous publications and websites specializing in the advancement of knowledge of cichlid fishes. He's well known for his contributions to articles to magazines like Cichlid News, and he's a very large contributor with Ad Koning's books, Malawi Cichlids in their natural habitat. This happens to be the third edition, and I believe we're up to the fifth or sixth edition now, but I'll let this individual talk about it. Without further ado, my friends, my fellow Canadian and good friend of mine, Mr. Larry Johnson. Let's get to it. All right, guys, we're sitting here with the legend himself, the man, the guy that spent, how many hours have you spent underwater in Lake Malawi, Larry?
Well, I've been there 18 times. So usually we get about 24 or 25 dives in. So usually each trip, I don't know, probably about 35 hours.
That's a lot. We'll just go with a lot. You said you've been 18 times to the lake, and if it wasn't for the pandemic, you would have gone every single year otherwise as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
But you've been doing this, you've been into Malawi cichlids pretty much exclusively since like the 70s?
Yes.
It's a long time.
It doesn't seem that long ago, but yeah, when you start backing up the years, I've been doing it a long time. Yes.
Now, let's go back. Let's paint the picture for the people here. Tell me, how did Larry get into fish keeping first, and then tell me after that. There's always got to be somebody to blame. For me, it was my dad. And a little tank in the den when I was a kid. It was always there, and that's what inspired me. So, what got you into fish keeping, and then what got you into Malawi cichlids?
Hanging around with different kids and what have you. And one of my buddies had a little aquarium. I think it was a 10-gallon. I thought, wow, this is really cool. I like to do this. And, hey, Mom, can I get a tank? Or hey, Dad, or whatever. And I did guppies in a bowl, I guess, when I first started, and they were breeding for me. My dad, he was a welder. He welded up a stand, and he got me a 15-gallon tank. And, I put a 10-gallon in below it. And, I was selling plants and guppies and what have you from a very early age. I don't know, probably 10 or 11 years old. And that's when I hit high school. There was other guys that had fish as well. And I had a couple of aquariums in my bedroom, as a kid when I was growing up. And then first thing I did when I got a full-time job was buy a 65-gallon tank. And really, I've never had less aquariums since. It's always been an addition and addition, MTS, multi-tank syndrome. Yep. So
65 gallons back in those days, you were legend 65 gallons.
Yeah, because I back in those days, they had a 30 tall, and I thought, wow, is that ever a huge tank? Of course, when you're a kid, everything's a lot bigger, But I never looked back. When I started my full-time job, I bought the 65-gallon tank, and then I eventually rented that house off my mom and dad, and I used one of the bedrooms as a fish room. And I had quite a little process going along there, producing a lot of African cichlids for one of the pet shops out in Burlington, Ontario. It's long gone now. And when I moved up to where I am now here in Mount Hope, Ontario, I built a fish room. Actually, I started building it before I even moved in because my mom and dad, they own the house, and they sold it to me. And I had most of the tanks up and running, and I moved all the fish out of my 75-gallon tanks or 65-gallon tanks back in those days into two 100-gallon tanks, and they were stuffed because I had to move those tanks. So I had done a little pre-building, and it was a matter of just moving the fish and then moving those tanks. And right there, boom, that was a big expansion. And then since then, I've reconfigured the fish room and made it a lot larger. Oh, I got 96 tanks downstairs in the fish room, and not all of them have fish in them because I keep the tanks open. For when I do an import, I have to have a certain amount of space to bring in, like the minimum order from there's 10 boxes.
Yeah, because
So
you import your website is Malawi Cichlid Imports, correct?
Yeah.
And you've been importing Malawi cichlids, wild caught, high end Malawi cichlids for how long?
Since 2006.
Have you been able to do any imports at all during this? I know you haven't been able to go to Malawi, you haven't been able to travel, but have you been able to do imports at all?
No. When everybody stopped traveling or they couldn't travel, a lot of the flights were canceled. So if there's no planes going into the country, you can't get fish out. Plans are to go back to Malawi this year. My bags are been packed for like 3 years, ready to go back. I got to drop a couple of things in the box and away I go. I mean, I could book a flight tomorrow and leave.
So how long have you been going? How many years have you been going to Malawi? When was the first time you went?
The first year we went, we had it was 1999. We call that the Canadian invasion because we had a decent group of guys from here go with Ag Konings over to Malawi. We
Was
had
it
a great
called
time
Malawi
back
then?
Yes, it was called Malawi. Nyasa is the Malawi word for lake. So when they say Nyasa, it was kind of like lake. It wasn't Lake Malawi, it was Lake. So, anyways, yeah, and we had a great time. I mean, that first year we got up into Mozambique, which is kind of rare now because they've made all sorts of stipulations and immigration requirements and all that to get into that part of the lake. And I did take a group up there one year. Was nice. It's on that side of the lake. It's mostly untouched. It's a very beautiful spot to go. Yeah. That side of the lake is a little bit nicer, and the big reef over there is Minos Reef. It's about a half-mile wide and about 1.5 miles long. And there's a couple of points of the reef that actually come up. Probably with the lake being down the last few years, we'd probably be sticking out of the water. So even people that will go on the trip that are just snorkelers, and I've had a few people that just snorkel on these trips, they could have enjoyed that, a lot.
Yeah.
The species of fish there are just so abundant, and there's lots of them. It's kind of like what the rest of the lake used to be like.
Now, I'm going to digress a second because I got a little bit further along from where I wanted, though. We talked about how you got into fish. We talked about everything, high school and stuff. But what was the trigger that got you into Lake Malawi cichlids specifically? Why them?
Well, I did, prior to the mid 70s when I got into Lake Malawi fish, I guess, it's the water around here. It's a lot harder. I'm out in the country. I have well water. The mineral content is there. So it's not like I could do discus. I did a lot of other species of fish. I did a fair share of life bearers and Australian rainbows and some Central American cichlids, and I've had all of those in the fish room with Malawi cichlids as well. I'd done some Tanganyikan cichlids, but when I come up here and I did all the expansions, I was having a lot of fun with the Africans. So it just continued on from there, and it seemed to be the right fit, especially for the water quality that I have here.
Yeah, and I guess Malawi in the early 70s, that was the group, really, because when they first started in the very early 70s, and they were coming fast and furious, the amount of fish that were coming out. So I guess you're right there, right at the get-go, with all this super cool stuff going. Because Central America, we're having a bit of an explosion right now of all this new stuff because they're getting into areas that they couldn't before. But Malawi in the 70s, that was the place to be.
Yeah, I one of my friends who was into pretty well 90% Malawis, he says, we used to get a radisson, at like 1 inch, and they were $75 a piece. And I going, wow, you know, Aratus got, you know, you got to give it to them. Aratus are really beautifully colored little cichlid. Of course, by the time you get into the second or third generation, they become quite nasty.
Yeah.
And you know, I've ordered them in from Malawi there, and I got a nice group in a 50-gallon tank, and I bred them, and I just couldn't keep up with the demand, because the ones that I was breeding, you know, the first generation that I was selling, were obviously much nicer than some of the crap that you get from the Far East, because the wild ones are just awesome. So
now, for the people that don't know, Lake Malawi is where? And what surrounds
it's
Lake
in
Malawi?
sub-Saharan Africa, as Stuart Grant used to say. And then when I try to explain to people who are not in the hobby, you know, they always say Maui. No, not Hawaii. You know, it's Malawi. You know, Malawi. And I said, when you look at the map of Africa, and you look at the island of Madagascar, you kind of come right in off of that coastline, and there's a lake there, and that's where Lake Malawi is. It's bordered by Tanzania, Mozambique, and Malawi, and the country of Malawi.
Lake Malawi is not a small lake. I think it's like, isn't it like the 6th or 7th largest body of fresh water in the world or something?
It's the 7th deepest. So, you know, being from Ontario, I tell people, you know, it's about the size of Lake Ontario, because, you know, the difference between 1st and 10th, there isn't really all that many square miles or kilometers difference in a lot of these lakes, you know.
Lake Malawi and Lake Tanganyika, its sister lake, they're chasms in a rift, right? And they're just basically these giant chasms that have formed beaches and reefs and everything. And then the lakes have evolved massively over the years. And that's why you get and correct me if I'm wrong, that's where you get that speciation, where you'll have a species on the east side of the lake that'll look similar to one that's on the exact opposite side of the lake, as long as they have the same type of habitat, because originally they used to be together, and then the lake just got bigger, and then they've evolved independently. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes. As the lakes rose, actually, with the lake going down as low as it's been, say in the last 5 or 6 years, you know, I'm thinking, you know, if it went down any farther, it could possibly trap some species, and then they would die off in the heat, in the shallow water. Yeah. Where we used to pull the boat up to the jetty at this Stuart Grant Limited. I got pictures there that we were walking where the boat used to be tied up. You know,
walk for a long distance to get to the boat.
And I could put my hand up and I say, well, you know, this is where the bottom of the boat used to be. You know, they lost, you know, a good 2 meters, maybe more, of water out of the lake.
What's causing the rapid decline of water?
Lack of rain. I talked to several old timers when I'm over there, not necessarily from Malawi, but some of the guys that were there from South Africa, and they said, you know, Africa, it runs on like a 12 and 25-year cycle, so it's not the first time it's been that low.
Okay, so it'll come back and forth.
I mean, the one island that we dive at, where the red empress comes from, Namalenji Island, it's about 2 kilometers from this other place where I stay at, Cool Runnings, and we're all sitting around there, and you know, you have a bunch of guys from the north, and they said, I wonder how they got that truck out there to the island. And I just say real quick, well, you know, they take it out there in the winter on the ice, and then when the ice melts, it falls to the bottom. And they're thinking a lot different than everybody else, because they're thinking, oh wow, you know, that I never thought of that, you know, because up here in Canada, you know, you have lots of vehicles go through the ice in the spring when it's starting to thaw out, you know, that ice fishing huts and what have you. So they just say, oh, okay, you know, that makes sense. And then we all start laughing, and oh yeah, we don't get any ice on the water over here in Malawi. So, you know, so the only other way it could get out there is if the water was really low. I mean, on the shallow side of the island, it's probably only about 3 or 4 meters, I guess, depending on the that cycle. When you have a lot of water, or have a little water, you know. My friend that owns Cool Runnings, they had water. They had almost virtually no beach for a couple of years, and they had to put sandbags in because it was washing all the beach sand out. And then, you know, you go there now, and you got to wear shoes to get to the water because you can't run across the hot sand at noon hour to get to the lake without burning your feet. And I mean, so that your feet are so sensitive that for the next couple of days, you can't, you know, you got to keep your shoes on everywhere you go. So, yeah.
Now,
But
so
yeah,
when you
that
travel
was
to Malawi, when you travel there, where do you base out of Stuart Grant's facility? And that's in Malawi,
yes.
am I correct?
No, that's, the plane lands in Lilongwe,
Okay.
Malawi. And then it's about an hour and a half drive to Kambiri Point, where Stuart M. Grant Limited is.
Okay. Where's your favorite spot to go diving?
Probably my most favorite spot, and only because I haven't been there a whole lot, is going to be Minos Reef in Mozambique. That is a place you can dive there all day. You can dive as long as you want. When you're diving at less than 33 feet, you can basically dive all day. You don't have to worry about decompression. And that reef is perfect for that. There might be some deeper spots somewhere along the reef, but certainly from where I've been there, I think a handful of times, it's all fairly shallow. And as I say, there's some spots you have to watch the boat around them because there's a couple of very shallow spots. The fish there are phenomenal. It's not like they probably haven't fished these reefs, but there hasn't virtually been no collecting there for a lot of years because they shut it down. Because Stuart and his men used to go in there and collect fish, and which isn't really reciprocal on the other side because the Tanzanian collectors are coming into Malawi and taking a lot of fish, and that's mostly uncontrolled. The problem is that the Malawi people aren't going into Tanzania, so it's kind of one-sided. That might change, but anyways, yeah. So I mean, I had red zebras, the estuary, the blue males in a nice bright orange, and I mean orange, almost red, females, quite a few times come in. They're awesome. It was named after Stuart's wife, Esther.
Yeah.
And that is a super place. Probably the other really good spot that I've dove at is every year we go for a checkout dive to make sure everything's running right. You get all your gear and everything else. We go to Nakantanga, which is part of the Malawi Island group.
Okay.
And I've done, I don't know how many dives I've done there, 40 or 50 dives, maybe more. And some years you see some fish and then you don't see them for a couple of years and then boom, they're back. So I find that the fish are sometimes cyclical,
Okay.
There's more, or maybe it's the day that I'm diving, there's more of this. Then the next year I go on, you see them, you don't see them, I mean, there's probably about 75 species around that island, and I don't think I've seen them all yet. So it takes a lot of time. Of course, it's a park island, and they're still fishing in the park around there, although a lot less now because now they got a patrol boat over there now that Ag Phonings helped set up that. But the Malawi government, they're not too interested in all this. They think the fish are going to last forever.
Well, the fish
are not aware,
getting smaller and smaller, and like that's one of the points that I had here is in all those years of you doing these expeditions, you've actually seen firsthand, because you've been doing it for so long. You've seen firsthand the true decline of fish populations in a lot of these areas, and you've been extremely, as well as that, have been very, very active in conservational efforts. Like there was the ANS.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In 2009, I was there for 3 months, helping install the anti-netting devices. It was a good stint. I did get away for a couple of weeks in that time to go with Ad while he was collecting some specimens that he had missed from the year before. So that was a nice trip around the lake. But these anti-netting devices, they work very well. You got to put them in so that they're about 10 and 12 feet under the water surface, where they're a silent net killer. They don't realize that they're there. I mean, after we pushed the rocks over with huge boulders with the anti-netting device attached to it by a cable, it was pretty hard to see the top of the anti-netting device. Most of these fishermen, eventually they'll figure it out. Nets keep getting caught in these things, and we can't remove them. But yeah, it's just like strip mining. These guys were pulling their nets up on the beach in these areas where the plant life was, where all the babies were hiding. The females would come up and they release their fry up closer to shore, and I think it's the onshore, but in these weedy areas, and they're a little bit more predator proof up that way. But when I was there, I did pull up some plants and plant them at a few different beaches. However, wasn't there long enough to go back and actually see my bolts. So they may be there, they may not be there. It just depends on if the guys have been dragging the nets. They're sneaky. I mean, they know they're not supposed to be there. They get in and they'll set their nets. They'll do a quick pull, and maybe they'll get enough for dinner. Maybe they won't. But it doesn't take much to pull the plants out.
They're trying to catch extra stuff to sell too, to make some money, right? Now, is that where that one fish, like you and Ad were very instrumental. I know that you guys had pulled a fish that was in steady decline from overfishing, and you brought it back to Stewart's place, and you had a captive breeding program of a very particular cichlid. Is that where that cichlid is from? Is that where it was reintroduced?
That was Chidongo Solosi.
Yes.
Used to be called Pseudotrophus solosi. It comes from up north. That reef's about 14 or 16 kilometers from Chisumulu Island, kind of north and west of the island. My safari group, I say, hey guys, this is our itinerary, and we're going to do this long haul up to Taiwan Reef, and we're going to release these fish. So, okay, it's a little bit of conservation. You just need a hand. It's no big deal. And one of the guys, we're supposed to be diving this. It's just, you are diving. You're just taking these fish down, and let them go. And afterwards, it's no big deal. It's just, you're going to dive there anyways. The lead of what Ad did the first year I went with him, we were putting the fish back on, send everybody down. Hey, we don't want you going any farther than about 40 feet and do a count of what you see. So, I'm usually the first one in, so I count a few more because, of course, some of them scatter. And, I think the first year I counted around 40 or 45. So there wasn't many. I mean, I had pictures previously from that location where by the anchor, where there might have been 150 or 200 Solosi just in a little pocket, their little group, and they're just swimming around the anchor. And then we were there a couple other times, and then the last time before we started putting them back, that's just, see how many Solosi are down there. I said, yeah, okay. So I went down, took my big camera unit down, and man, I got a couple of single pictures, and I think I got a trio, a male and two females swimming along one of the rock faces. That was it. Yeah. And the reef was a bit of a mess. The off-flux, which is the algae, it had grown so thick that you could actually put your arm on a rock and scrape it off, like you would do up here when you get snow in your windshield and you don't have a scraper, right? You put your arm on it and it would come off. There's pieces of the reef were hanging off here and hanging off there. And then we started putting the fish in there. And after, I don't know, a couple of years, I don't know what happened, but the population was starting to come up. They weren't catching them there. And suddenly all this schloffing off of the off-flux, it stopped. So to me, it seemed to get a little bit healthier. But I know since we put our last batch, there's a couple of the Tanzanian guys that come over, and they've done at least a couple of collections there. I hear there's not quite as many now as there once was, even since we put them back. I mean, the last load that we put on there was like, we bagged up 717. Of course, the odd little tiny ones, they get pinched in the corners of the bag. So there was a couple of DOAs, but you know, we put over 700 fish back on the reef. So where do those 700 go? Because I mean, they don't spread throughout the reef. They just spread over a certain area on the reef. So the Solosi, Chidongo Solosi was one. Alanacara Banshee is another one. And then Dynacromas Chipoki. Those three. And I know that all three of them have been placed back in the reef. Unfortunately, at Chidunga Rocks, there's a couple other exporters there, and they collect regularly at the rocks. So the guy that's been raising them has been putting them in a different spot that's fairly unknown. It still had the Chipoki there, but he's putting them at a different spot. So
it's like what happened at the very originally back in the day in that little national park down in the southern point there. It became like an aquarium, right? They were just adding all the fish to there.
Yeah. That actually, you know, when I started going to that area, they call that the aquarium. It's Matandi Rocks, and Ad would never take us there. And I said, well, you know, because I remember saying to him, hey, why don't we go to the aquarium? What's the aquarium? Oh, that's that shoreline there. And he didn't want to go there. And so finally, you know, I was there last year. We're looking for different spots. And boom, I says, what's this place called? You know, to the captain on the, what's this place called? Matandi Rocks. I said, Karsten goes there, and a couple of other guys go there. And I says, you know, I think that's called the aquarium. So he took us there. Oh, it's a great spot. I don't know why they never took us. Like,
it's
granted,
not natural. It's all a mix of fish that shouldn't be there, right?
Yeah. It's a mix of fish, but there's still some fish that are found on Tumby Island West there. But you know, man, the Filbornis there were like big bars of soap. You know, they were huge. And I go, wow, this is really nice. You know, got lots of pictures, and I could say, oh, you know, there's Perilucos. It's a transplant, and there's Aurora. That's a transplant. I know most of the fish that are transplanted. Sometimes, you know, you get a number of
talk about this many fish. Video on the invasive lionfish, the saltwater invasive lionfish that's, you know, plaguing Bermuda, and it's all over Florida and stuff like that. And all these people keep saying, and they blame the pet train. And I'm like, me and Sandy Moore have talked about it at length before I did that video. And I'm like, they've tracked the spread of it, of where it goes. Because I think it was the Moat Aquarium I went to, and they have a tank of them. They have this little graphic video thing that shows the tracking of how it moved and how it migrated and stuff. And we watch that thing. It's like just the likelihood in the ocean of someone releasing, you release one and I release a couple, the likelihood of them finding themselves to actually be, you know, form a mate and breed is like in the billions. And what more likely, and people don't want to talk about it, but what probably the real reason is why that fish is there, is more than likely some boat driver that did little tiny tours. Like there's hundreds of thousands of them all around those reef areas and stuff like that, where they want to take little diving trips. Guaranteed, I think one of those ones, a little overzealous, went and caught a couple of lionfish and went and put them down on an area, or a little group of lionfish on a little tiny reef somewhere, and he was the only one that knew that they were there. And basically they started breeding in the population, but he had something unique to take somebody to. And that's exactly the reason. I remember who was the original people before Stuart Grant, but they were putting those fish there because they'd have to go so far to collect something. They just thought it's easier. Why don't we just put it right near right here, that we have it?
Yeah, I believe that's true, and I've heard that as well. I mean, eventually, it was the Davies. They got kicked out of. They got kicked out of the country, and all the fish that they had in their vats were returned to the lake. Of course, they knew what they were doing when they dumped them all in Matandi Rocks. You know, that's the closest point that the fish were going to populate there. And then as it's like anything, the population gets so big that it starts to move, and then the water goes up, the water goes down. Now the rocks, you can almost walk from the rocks to Tumby Island, in the shallower times. And yeah, it's infiltrated the island there as well. But it's surprising though that all the species to me are more readily seen at Matandi Rocks, which is, I don't know, 300 yards from the shore of Tumby West Island. Yeah, but that was, I guess that was a great place. I thoroughly enjoyed the dive there. It had been windy, so I mean, the water had a little turbidity to it, but still, it wasn't too bad. We got some good video, got some good pictures. Some of these places, I wish, if the guys were a little more patient. Hey, let's dive this place for the whole day. So we do a dive, come up. If you're diving deep, then you have to wait for the nitrogen to blow out of your system. So, you could dive there a second time or a third time, and then you're not using a lot of diesel fuel to move the boat around. Hey, we're just there, and we do the lizard thing after a dive. You're underwater for an hour and a quarter, hour and 20 minutes. That's usually about my limit. I mean, when you come up, you think, oh, this is tropical. Yeah, it's not really that tropical. The water's 75, 76, maybe 77. Yeah. And you're underwater for, an hour to an hour and a half. You get cold. So we get on the boat, get undressed, hang our stuff up to drip dry, then go up on the roof and get warm. So, I mean, if you got to blow off a little bit of nitrogen between dives, if they're a little bit deeper, then, you take time to warm up. You have a bite to eat. Yeah. You sit around, sun yourself for a while, get nice and warm, and then you go back to diving again. I mean, everybody's got a dive computer with them, and that tells you on there when it's safe to go back in the water again. Yeah. So it's not rocket science like it used to be, but yeah.
Yeah, you're not using the tube off the diesel pump on the boat like some of the collectors used to use, eh? Just a garden hose and going down.
Yeah, that's the hookah system, and what they have is they have like a little cold water tank. Us people that have well systems, we know what a cold water tank is. It's not very big. Sometimes it's a little bit squatter than a scuba tank. It's rounder, but they can't blow up the pressure. And they have a motor that compresses the air into this larger tank, and then they run the air lines down to the divers. The problem with that, I was talking to one of the guys that did it a few times. He says when one guy is here and the other guy wants to go down here, at about 50 feet, and you got no air because it all. Air's like water.
All comes from the same system.
It flows to the least resistance, right? So you have to be kind of both at the same level all the time. So I think he had a spare little bottle with him, one of those little safety bottles. It's about this big. You get, I don't know, 8 or 10 breaths off it before it's empty. So
out of all the fish that you've kept or all the fish you've seen, what is can you narrow it down? I don't know if everybody's ever asked, but would you be able to narrow it down as to an absolute Larry Johnson's favorite Malawi cichlid? Or would you narrow it down to like a genre or a group?
Well, I mean, everybody loves peacocks. I love them too. But aside from that, there's I'm raising one up now, which is Autopharynx, Aero marginatus, Margaret from Mangano Island. It's a really beautiful fish. Yeah. I like that. Of course, the yellow blazed lithobates from Zimbabwe rocks is a classic. It's a beauty. A little bit deeper in the body than what in the hobby than what it's found in the lake these days. I try to not overfeed my fish to make them big, fat, and ugly. I try to keep the original shape of these fish.
Well, I know that I've been at shows judging with Ad. When it comes to Malawi fish, Ad will deduct points if the fish is overweight. And like, as you know, as well as almost every Malawi fish that's going to be in the trade is going to be overweight, right? Like, because the way they live, the way they eat, the diets that they have, they spend more energy for the amount of caloric intake they get. And I've been worried, like, the
Yeah.
fish will just be breathtaking, and he'll deduct points because it's overweight. I support that.
Yeah, that might be a good point taken by some of these people, but yeah, especially all the guys that are throwing fish at the OCA. You might want to not. Well, I mean, really, you shouldn't be feeding your fish 2 or 3 days before you show them either, right?
Right.
So,
well, you've seen, like certain fish, like full of bornei and stuff. They're always these just big round logs, right? They'll eat the food if you provide it for them. They'll eat it. Well, I've spent so much time at some of the Florida farms. I've never been to Lake Malawi, but I've spent so many time at the Florida farms, and I've had like little access literally just to go hog wild, do whatever I want. And one of the particular farms, pulling out fish in Florida sunshine and seeing full-blown adults, it's hard not to have your breath taken away. Like, there's one particular fish I remember, Bucochromos spectabilis, Dynacromas kawingi. These are fish I'd never even heard of before. But like when you pull one out of the water and it's a foot long, 14-inch long, and it's just full color, it's just absolutely breathtaking. But I think my absolute favorite for Malawi fish, and I think it'll always be, I have a long story behind it, but with a friend, same friend that I've done the video about the buffalo heads. It's the same individual. But my absolute favorite would still always have to be the absolute hobby classic, what used to be formerly known as Dynacromas Alley, but is now what, Cyanochromous friar eye. You get that in just the classic. It looks like pressed metal. It's just there's no better fish than that to me.
Yeah. And the ones that are in the hobby are kind of like a cross between the alley and the friar eye. It's much deeper body, because when I get them in here. I do the thing. Hey, if you get any, alleys, just single bag them and send them to me, or friar eye, I should say. Single bag them between the bags, because that's kind of like free transport. It helps stand the rest of the bags up in the box. And the guys looking at them, what's that? And I says, that's what a friar eye is supposed to look like, not the crap you see in the shops. And it's a very long, slim fish, where most of the ones in the shops, they're long, but they get a lot of body depth on them. That's not. I've had the Dynacromas Alley here once. I got a group of them in.
What do they look like comparatively? If you see them side by side, are they vastly different?
The alley were a little bit bigger and a lot less color.
Okay.
They're almost colorless here, but I had one of the guys that ran a pet shop up in London. He came down, he took them all. I said, yeah, that is a rare fish, because you don't see them. And in the wild, I've got 1 or 2 pictures of that fish as it's turning. I couldn't get a shot. It's always, there it goes. And you get the ass end with the tail wrapped around it, So it's there. I know it's there, but it's just out of sight. It's just lurking off beyond the murk.
I remember in the Cichlid Room Companion on your author's page, you'd witnessed some sort of unique feeding behavior with that particular species.
And I think that was with my old little Sony camera. It takes 30-second clips. So I got about 3 clips of this friar eye at Tumby Island West. And he's rocking back and forth. And what he's doing is he's simulating that he's feeding off the bottom like an mbuna. Oh, okay. And what he does is, they had the Protomelus taeniolatus, like it's a red empress, but it's not red like the red empress is from Mamalungi. And what he's doing is, as he's rocking back and forth, he's getting closer and closer and closer to the spawn that she's released to fry on the rock. And then he gets so close, I'll take a stab at it, and he rushes in, and he may or may not have got a fry, because at my frame rate on that particular camera, I mean, I've got Livingstone swallowing really big fry, and it's there and then it's gone. And you know, you see when the fish kind of goes left or right, and then you can see them, you know, working the fish in their mouth. But anyways, so I got about 3 videos of this fish, and I when I get back to Stuart's place back in the days, you know, you could pop a disc into your CD into your laptop and burn it. So that's what I did, and I give it to Ad. Well, 3 months later, he goes, "Whoa!" And I go, "Boy, you just got to that video now." But he was leaving early in the morning, like before the sun come up, you know, like I don't know, 4 or 5 in the morning. So I did the CD, and I put a Ad, check this out, and I knew he would have breakfast before he goes, so I put it on the doors of the rendezvous where everybody goes to eat, and I sat there. And when I got up, it was gone, and he was gone. So I thought, okay, I hope he got it. He did. So, yeah, and then so he did a DVD on predators of Malawi.
Yeah, I
and
have. Well, that's just like Lake Malawi. When you look, Lake Malawi and Tanganyika, and I'm sure some of the other lakes as they get more and more explored, that's where all these incredible behaviors, like nobody would ever have believed you back in the day if you said there's a fish that literally lays on the bottom and pretends to be a rotting corpse to wait for fish to come close enough that it can eat them. Like that's absolutely bizarre behavior when you describe it that way. And like exactly like you're talking about this Dynacromas fryerii, that is extremely specialized, evolved behavior to do that. Yeah. But it evolved that to be successful, right?
Yeah, yeah. And now, once you're aware of it, whenever these fish are around, I was, oh, there's one there. So I sit and watch it for a bit. And sometimes you see the rocking behavior, sometimes you don't, you know. If you're at Tumby Island West and you see that fish, you follow along, I'm sure you'll see that, you know, because they're not always going to be doing it, but they got to be around where the females are releasing their fry on the rocks.
So, all right, my friend, thank you very much, Larry. People go check out his website. It's a www.malawicichlids.com. Am I correct?
.ca.
Okay, well, I'll put the proper address there in the link. And not a lot of wild stuff right now, but you are breeding fish and you'll have offspring for sale. But down the road, make sure you save that link in your browser so you're going to be able to access some high-end, top quality. And hopefully we'll see Larry on the road at some speaking engagements. I understand maybe you'll be speaking at one of our favorite clubs next fall, maybe, if it all goes well.
Yes.
Well, my friend, thank you very, very much, Larry, for taking the time to chat with us today. I absolutely appreciate it, my friend. And hopefully we'll see you on the road soon.
All right, super.
Thanks, guys. Take care.